everyone, I'm Kristen Howerton, a writer and a psychotherapist.
And I'm Rue Powell, an admitted workaholic and self-care Luddite.
And you are listening to Selfie, a weekly podcast about women learning to take better care of themselves.
We think self-care is important, but it can simultaneously be elusive. We don't lack information about it, but we don't always quite get there.
So this podcast is dedicated to exploring different aspects of self-care, from the silly to the serious. We're looking at health, relationships, beauty, periods, and maybe a touch of the random.
We also want to look at the hurdles we face that keep us from caring for ourselves like we should.
To submit questions to me or Rue, or to Claire, our beauty expert, or BJ, our resident therapist, join us in our private forum by searching Selfie Podcast Community on Facebook. Hey guys! Well, on today's episode, we're going to be talking with author Nicole Lynn Lewis on community care for young moms. She was a teen mom and she has kind of dedicated her career to helping other teen moms. I know we've talked quite a bit on the show about how community care is an aspect of self-care, and I think you will find it an interesting conversation, whether you were a teen mom or no one, or just are interested in empowering women in general. And then BJ and I are talking about emotional labor and gender, and why we find so many women carrying such a bigger load around the emotional and care tasks of the house. But first I'm going to do a check-in with Rue. Hey, Rue.
Hey, Kristen, how are you? How is your self-care?
Well, my self-care is going well. I am feeling like I am coming out of, the fog of the pandemic. And it's hard to talk about because, we're watching people in India really struggling. We're seeing people around the world still, adults still waiting for their first dose. And so, I want to kind of preface all of that with saying that I recognize the inherent privilege in this, but my kids have now all gotten the first dose of the vaccine.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, which just feels like, wow, like it feels like we are, for us, not the whole world, but for us, we are slowly moving back to some normalcy. I let some other kids spend the night at my house this weekend. We've had other kids in our house for the first time in almost a year because we were the party house. We were the house where all the kids came and hung out, which there's, good and bad aspects to that. It's also exhausting. But it's interesting. It feels like we're, with the kids finally vaccinated, we can go back to some of the things that we were more accustomed to.
Yeah, that's great. My eldest got vaccinated. The other two are under 12, so they haven't. And it was really neat because we had made the appointment, and for my appointment, I walked in, got the shot, waited 15 minutes, walked out. Same both times, super fast. And I think because there were so many of us that just wanted to get our kids vaccinated, there were probably, and we all had appointments. It was long. It was, and it's no one was complaining,
Totally. I mean, I think anyone who showed up, in those first few days of them announcing kids' eligibility, we were the parents that were like, please.
Yes, please hurry.
And we were probably the ones that were sitting at home.
So now it's interesting because we have people in our lives that are not getting vaccinated, and I have kids that are under 12, and that puts us in a rough spot, right? Like the CDC said this past week that if you are vaccinated, you can be indoors and outdoors without a mask. And it kind of feels a little like the CDC said, "Hey, F those kids." Like there was no other conversation for kids under 12. And so I saw that, let's say I am vaccinated. Let's say I get COVID. I'm a breakthrough case. The likelihood is that would be so, like, I would not get very sick. I would be asymptomatic at best, and I wouldn't have enough viral load to shed and infect my kids, in theory.
Most likely.
And yet I wish that it really felt like it really felt like that day was a big, wow, COVID is ending, but there's an entire population of kids who can't get vaccinated.
I know. Well, and I mean, the messaging, it was tough because it was like that messaging was for people who've had the vaccine. And then, of course, what immediately happened is people who don't have the vaccine, who have been angry, who've been wanting to argue, took that as their cue to take up arms. And so, my boyfriend's daughter, she's 18, she works in a bagel shop. Very next day, she's got a guy coming in, doesn't wear his mask. Can you please put your mask on? Because our California businesses still have a mask mandate. We have it till June. And the guy just yelled at her, didn't you hear the CDC and blah, 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 blah. So I do worry that, it's like I want to celebrate that we're moving forward, but at the same time, I fear that the people that will be punished are the people who work in food service.
Right.
Or businesses that are now going to be yelled at by someone who probably doesn't have the vaccine in the first place.
Right. So my best friend is the executive director of a library, and it has been a struggle just to get people to come to the library and stay masked. And they have all these protocols. They have extra masks, and they have hand sanitizer stations, and they do all these different things. And she said the second, within the hour, people were coming in with no masks, even though our state still has a mask mandate. So it was really confusing. I wish it had been phrased in such a way that was not almost like burr, 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 no masks anymore. It felt strange, and I'm going to criticize the president for President Biden to say, look, this is the rule. If you don't want to wear your mask, just get vaccinated. Yeah, that's not how it's going to work. You can't enforce someone to get vaccinated, or you can't enforce someone to show that they're vaccinated or not, and then have them, wear a mask or not. What's just people aren't going to wear masks. Yeah. Right. It's not how this works. So the idea that it's supposed to incentivize people to get vaccinated is laughable to me.
No, I don't think it will incentivize people. In fact, quite the opposite. I think that they're thinking like, sweet, I don't have to wear a mask anymore. Why would I get and I don't have to get the vaccine. Like, I'm getting everything I want.
Right, precisely. So that, I did find that irritating. I still find it a bit stressful. But the news that I am likely not going to pass it to my kids, that felt better. And honestly, getting my eldest vaccinated, she obviously still has 5 weeks to go till she's fully vaxxed.
Yeah.
And then my second kid, she'll turn 12 in February. And hopefully there will be vaccinations for the younger set by then. But I'm like, well, at the latest, at least in, X amount of months, she'll be vaxxed. So, but yeah, I feel for the parents. I had tweeted something like, the pandemic is over for everyone except for kids under 12 feels like the start of a dystopian YA novel. Because it does a little bit.
I know.
But I am otherwise I can feel, I feel more glimmers of hope.
Yeah. I feel more glimmers of hope. I feel less panic. And, we're looking towards a more normal summer. The kids are doing sports. They're doing plays, the things that make us feel like we're participating in humanity instead of, last summer was pretty bleak.
Yeah, last summer was rough. I will say it felt like this weekend I could be, for my kids, like, fun mom again. And, setting up like play dates, and like we did outside Nerf gun war with a bunch of kids, and it was outdoors. We felt good about that, and we went to get iced chai from Starbucks and just all these things. And I was like, some days I give myself like a B- in momming, and this weekend it was like A+ 3 days in a row, which means I can skate through the next 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, you don't even have to talk to them. You don't even have to cook now.
It felt so good to just do stuff, and say yes to stuff, and it was so. My youngest is 9, and it's been really over a year since she's had a play date with a friend. Because outside is hard, and anyway, she cried. She cried. She was just so full of like emotion. So she she cried, and it was very sweet, and she was very happy. But it's been a lot of big emotions around this.
Well, one thing I do want to do, it's so interesting because the end of the pandemic is going to be a real slow roll, and because it will. Some of us will get vaccinated. Some people in your family won't be yet. There's still countries that are still totally dealing with devastation. But I've just been trying to think, like, how do I kind of signify for my family a little closure around it. And I think once my kids have their second vaccine, we as a family might do some kind of a, I mean, it's cheesy, but like what did you learn during the pandemic, and what are you taking away from it, and what was the worst part and what was the best part? Just some kind of like an exercise of writing down our experience to look back on. Yeah,
it's weird. It's almost like we need to have a capsule.
Right? But it's like when you don't, I don't know when you do that, because like I said, I mean, it's the end of the pandemic is just such a different, it's a different marker for everyone,
Yeah, I think that I am just trying to ease them into normalcy. Like I signed my kids up for like different camps this summer, which they did not get to do last year.
Yeah, me too.
And it feels good. It feels good. And there are certain things that I don't want to go back to pre-pandemic. Like I think the pandemic taught us all a lot about ourselves.
For sure.
And so there are certain things that I want to keep doing because, over the past year, my girls really I feel like they grew closer to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater or whatever idiom makes the most sense.
Totally.
But it feels good. And I don't know how to commemorate it. Maybe like a backyard barbecue with sparklers or something.
I know, right? Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to think about that. I have a couple weeks before we get there. Well, what do you have for 2 thumbs up this week?
Ooh, okay. I have 2 thumbs up. Okay, so I have been rearranging my kids' rooms, and I have been moving around a lot more, which is good. I wanted to do that. And I have found that I make a noise when I bend over now. To pick something up off the ground. I'm like, wait, this is new. Like I just make these involuntary grunts now as I'm like bending over and picking things up. Anyway, I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I do know how I feel about it. I feel strange. Like I should not be making, like it's not that dramatic. I should be able to, bend with my knees. Point is, I've owned this, but I'm bringing this up again because I think it's so important. It's just a foam roller. Get a basic, don't get the super expensive one, a basic, actually Amazon Basics has a foam roller. And it's very, very good. And if you're the kind of person that doesn't like yoga or you don't have the patience for it or you don't, which I can be sometimes, foam rolling, it's like it stretches and massages and maybe it's anecdotal, but it feels good at the end of the night or in the morning, just as like a little, you can put on a little music, as your coffee's brewing. And sometimes I will just foam roll on my kitchen floor next to my coffee machine while I'm waiting for it to brew. So I recommend this, especially if you're feeling achy or if you make noises or if you're the kind of person, instead of getting out of bed, you like have to sit for a second.
Yes. Well, you mean you're basically giving yourself your own massage, kind of.
Yes. And I think many of us are probably touch deprived. Do you think you'll get a massage soon?
I do. I actually got a gift certificate, and I do think I will get a massage soon. I actually have a gift certificate for Burke Williams. I have not been there in ages. I love that place. Do you have Burke Williams where you are?
No, I don't know what that is.
It's just, a lovely, lovely spa, and they've got, I like getting a massage at a place where like you can hang out before and after, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like you really get your money's worth. Like so Burke Williams, they have like a hot tub and they have a sauna and a spa and shower rooms. I will stretch it into an entire day.
As you should.
Yes. So yes, I'm excited about that.
So I want to get a massage, but I don't want them. So first of all, I don't want to wear a mask while getting a massage because your face is already stuffed into that thing. So as long as, I'm vaccinated and they feel good about it, then I can take my mask off. But I also, I don't want a massage if someone's wearing latex gloves.
Oh, no. No.
Because
they're not doing that, are they?
Well, are they?
I don't
Maybe.
know.
I think so. Because I've had to get my nails done and they came over and did the little massage. Like, they do everything with latex gloves. And even the person that comes over to rub my shoulders, like, put on latex gloves first.
Wow.
And then
I haven't
even
had anything done, so I don't even know. I guess so.
Even tried to put, like, the lotion on the back of my neck with latex gloves on it, and it felt super, super weird. So I want to wait until it's, like, no more latex gloves.
Ooh, yeah, I do too. I'll have to call over. Don't want to be a jerk, but like, yeah, I think I'll wait for that too.
Otherwise, doesn't it feel like you're getting massaged by like a slimy balloon?
Or by a condom.
Yeah. Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
Okay, so my other 2 thumbs up is this year is like my year of sunscreen. It was last year too, I will say, because I am trying to be very good about my skin.
Yeah.
And we can buy all the things and do all the Botox and whatever, but you just undo it all if you don't wear sunscreen. So
Absolutely.
I spend more money on sunscreen than I do any other facial product at this point. And I've been trying to layer it a little bit. So now if I wear eyeshadow, I try to find like an eyeshadow with SPF or a blush, also a blush with SPF. And if you want to try that, you can start with like a tinted lip balm. And I like that very much because sometimes stuff that's moisturizing is not SPF, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like SPF isn't necessarily inherently moisturizing. So it's the Sun Bum Tinted Lip Balm, and it comes in a bunch of pretty colors.
Ooh.
And they're super cheap. So you just buy a bunch, stick them in your bag.
Oh my gosh, they're $6.
Yes.
I love this brand, but I've never tried this.
Yes, you should try it. And I was reading a statistic, and I will quote it poorly, but the amount of women who get lip cancer versus men, it's very, there's a large disparity because women wear lipstick. You know what I mean? So it's good to protect your lips.
Yeah.
So the Sun Bum Tinted Lip Balm is nice. And you can get pricier stuff too. Like I think Supergoop does an eyeshadow, and Color eScience, whatever, does a blush. But I would like to see more of these because I like to layer on the SPF now.
Ooh, yes. I like that. I'm going to
So
try
how
that.
about you? What's on your 2 thumbs up for the week?
Okay, well, I have started wearing foundation. Do you wear foundation?
I do when there's a camera in front of me. Otherwise, I do tinted moisturizer. Tell me about your foundation.
I did not wear foundation. I was more of a powder girl. I would just put a powder on. But then as I'm doing my skincare, I'm just like, I really want to be lazy and I want one thing. Like a moisturizer. That's a skin, like a foundation that's going to even everything out. So I, actually when I was in San Francisco, I went into like a green beauty store and found this Exa foundation, and it's like a skin treatment foundation. So it has why can I never say this one? Hyaluronic acid. It has that in it. It has maki berry. It has microalgae. So it's like a moisturizer, but it's like a foundation too. It's not just like a tinted moisturizer. It's buildable,
Oh, that's nice.
It's got good coverage. And I've actually been really liking it. I think, I don't know. I always just never wanted to wear foundation because I'm like, I don't, my skin is my skin. But I don't know. As I'm getting older, I'm like, I'm just even things out a little bit.
I love the packaging. Is the packaging nice in person too?
Yeah, it's in a glass bottle. It's really, it's expensive. It's spendy. But a little goes a long way, and it does feel very luxurious, I will say. It feels like it's spendy.
I also like that the shades are so inclusive.
Yeah.
They have so many different shades.
They really do. In fact, it was funny to go into a real makeup store because I hadn't been in one in so long. But I was like, I need a professional to tell me the shade, Right. But I couldn't believe how many shades they had. They really did. They had like
really pretty.
all the way up. Yeah.
There are some, even for me, and I wouldn't call myself brown. I guess I'm beige, and I have yellow undertones, and there are some makeup lines that I can't even go to at all because it's such a pink undertone, or it oxidizes and goes orange. So I love supporting any makeup brand that considers melanin.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. What else do you have?
And then my other one is a collagen drink. I've been trying to drink collagen every day because it's good for your gut. I've been trying to do some gut healing as we've had a number of guests on talking about that importance. So I've been doing collagen, and I found one that I really like because it also has other supplements. So it's kind of like a one and done. And so this one is called Immune Maximizer Plus. It's by NutriCollagen, but it has the collagen, and then it also has zinc. It also has vitamin C. So I like that I can just take the one thing and feel like I've kind of covered a number of things at once.
Oh, and it has elderberry too. That's nice.
It has elderberry. It has digestive enzymes. So yeah, it's got a lot of good immune support in addition to the collagen.
Riddle me this. What does it taste like?
Okay, I think all collagen tastes like garbage.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's gelatinous, you know? I mean, it's just by its very nature. I mean, I like how we say collagen, but like, it's gross. I mean, it's bovine collagen, like from a cow.
Well, when people say that, like, you know, Vital Proteins doesn't taste like anything, it tastes like bone broth. I feel like I just put bone broth in my coffee. So I had one scoop and then, you know, never again.
Well, this one, I don't mind. I have to put it in a drink. So I usually I will either mix it into a matcha tea that's heated. I mean, the key really to taking collagen, I think, is you have to blend it. You can't just stir it.
Oh.
Like you've got to, so if I do a matcha, I use one of those matcha whisks, or I'll put it in my coffee and use a little stick blender, not a blender, like a frother.
You froth the bovine.
I froth the bovine collagen. It's so gross. And there is a little mind over matter for me. I don't actually eat beef. I don't eat anything from a cow. So yeah, there's a little, I have to put it in something.
Sure. Now I get it.
Taste from the beginning. Today's episode is sponsored by Usual Wines. Usual Wines are wines for the modern drinker. They make single-serving wines in adorable glass bottles. Each bottle is 6.3 ounces, which is a heavy pour or about a glass and a half of wine. It's ideal for when you don't want to open a whole bottle or when you're in a group setting or on a date and you want different varieties of wines. Because of the single-serve format and the bottle design, Usual is always fresh, no more flat, bubbly, or stale wine. They're great for travel, great for girls' nights or date nights, and they are perfect for gifts. Usual Wines has several varieties. They have a red blend, a rosé, which is my personal favorite, and a sparkling white wine. They're made from world-class AVAs in California, like Napa, Sonoma, and they're made with minimal intervention, so there's zero sugar and zero additives. They also have a Usual Spritz, which is a low-alcohol, low-calorie wine spritzer made of sparkling wine juice and guava juice. It's a classy option for those of us who like seltzers. Each serving has just 83 calories. And the wines are low carb with 0 grams of sugar. You can check out their website at www.usualwines.com, and you can use our discount code SELFIE for $8 off your first order and your first glass on us. That's code SELFIE at usualwines.com for $8 off your first order. Well, today we have the pleasure to be chatting with Nicole Lynn Lewis. She is the author of the new book, Pregnant Girl, A Story of Teen Motherhood, College, and Creating a Better Future for Young Families. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Well, I'm excited to chat with you too. Your book touches on a lot of topics that were relevant in my own family of origin. My sister had a baby at age 16. And so I know that you are, you're sharing your story, both to tell your own story and then also just to help us better understand young motherhood and how we can help women who are in that position achieve their dreams. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your own background and where you found yourself when you were a teenager?
Yeah. So today I am a mom of 4 and soon to be 5, a social entrepreneur. I founded a nonprofit organization called Generation Hope about 11 years ago and have been working to grow that organization with a really phenomenal team. And that organization's mission is really connected to my own story of being a teen mom myself. I got pregnant my senior year of high school, and even though I was a really strong student, honor roll, college bound, I heard the same messages that many young women hear in that situation, which is your life is over, you're not going to go to college, you're not going to be successful. And I decided I think I knew even then that education was probably the best promise for me to be able to provide, for my daughter and give her the life that I really wanted her to have. And so it was incredibly difficult just getting to college, but I started at William and Mary when she was a little under 3 months old. And, that experience of working my way through college and being a new mother with few resources really influenced the work that I do today.
Yeah. And your story is just incredible that you really got yourself through college kind of on your own.
Yeah. There wasn't a support system or any sort of program or structure in place at my school to support, students who were parenting like me. I see that even across the higher ed spectrum today. We do not have a higher ed system that's really supportive of parents and caregivers in making sure that they make it to the graduation stage. So it was a daily act of survival, just focused on getting through the next 24 hours. How do I get food on the table for both my daughter and I? Childcare was always so difficult. We know that childcare is difficult, no matter how old you are. But particularly for young parents, it seems impossible to find affordable, reliable childcare. And so, those were the daily kind of obstacles that I was constantly trying to overcome as a young mother, in addition to, going to a prestigious school and trying to make sure that I made good grades and was able to graduate.
Yeah, you're doing so much work now in helping teen moms, and there's a statistic that less than 2% of teen moms will earn their degrees before the age of 30. How can we help change that statistic?
Well, I think there are things that all of us can do, no matter, who we are, what position we're in. We all have an ability to kind of change the narrative around what's possible for young parents. And there's such a stigma and such a negative stereotype, that we put on young men and women who find themselves in this situation. And that stigma really confines what is possible for them. I think we can all start to really think differently about the potential of young parents, and doing something to remove barriers for this population is within our grasp, each and every one of us. You may know of a young parent in your church, in your community, in your neighborhood. There may be a nonprofit organization that serves this population. And so how can you help to really change the way that we respond and support young parents? And I think all of us have the ability to do that. The fact that less than 2% are graduating from college and less than 50% even graduate from high school really indicates that we have some real work to do in our education systems, and even in our social service systems that will help to kind of address some of these real sinkholes and incredible hurdles that have been created for young parents to actually be successful. So I think it starts with helping people to see that there is incredible potential in these young people and making sure that we're all doing something to foster that potential.
Absolutely. If, people are listening and thinking like, wow, I really, I have a heart for young moms. I'd really love to dive in and help. Where would they start?
Well, I think, like I said, many communities have initiatives or ministries and churches or nonprofit organizations that are working to help young parents in some way. It might be housing. It might be providing them with, those tangible items that they might need, diapers, things like that. So that's always a good place to start. Generation Hope, my organization, we help teen moms and dads earn their college degrees, primarily in the DC area, but we're also now advocating for parenting college students all across the country. And we have different opportunities for people to get involved. Even if you're not in the DC region, you can, for example, tutor one of our scholars virtually. So there are opportunities for people to even get involved with Generation Hope, and we'd love to have people do that. I
love it. How does poverty play into this, and how do we help kind of equalize the barriers for people who are coming without a lot of economic privilege as a young mom?
poverty plays a huge role.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I'm hoping people gather from my book, Pregnant Girl, is that there are so many underlying issues that contribute to teen pregnancy that happen and are in the lives of young people way before those two pink lines show up.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to really start talking about and addressing and prioritizing those kind of underlying issues if we want to make sure that we're preventing teen pregnancy, but also if we want to make sure that we're helping those young people who do experience a pregnancy be successful. Poverty is huge. I think we've all been conditioned to believe that teen pregnancy causes poverty.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that poverty causes teen pregnancy. And if we're going to make real advances when it comes to young people, we have to come to terms with that. At Generation Hope, we're helping young people who are parents and who have overcome incredible obstacles way before their pregnancy. We have scholars in our program who grew up in foster care, who grew up in extreme poverty, sleeping on couches and people's floors and in shelters. They may have lost their parents to substance abuse or incarceration. And, these are the things that people don't want to talk about, but they're the reality that's happening out there for so many young people.
Mm-hmm.
And the pregnancy is often just a symptom
Yeah.
of those underlying issues.
Yeah. When I was in college, I worked at a group home for older foster youth, and the group home was specifically for young moms. And so we had girls, age 14 to 18 with their babies. And, I can just attest that it was absolutely just a symptom of, the setting that they were in. And if they did not receive intervention, a lot of those girls were on track to then have their own kids enter the foster system. And so, it's something that I think we as a society really need to pour into, so that girls are able to raise their own babies and succeed and stop that cycle of kids entering the system.
Yeah. And I think we often, we talk about these issues in silos. Like we'll talk about homeless youth and we'll talk about, foster care youth, and we'll talk about, all of these kind of issues that we care about, but we don't talk about who might be at the center of these issues and what happens when you are experiencing, for example, trauma in your childhood, even race and the role that race plays. I mean, teen pregnancy is more common in communities of color. And I think we're having this national conversation around race and racial oppression in this country, but we're not connecting it to these issues that we all care about. So we have to stop talking about things in these silos and start really making the connections that will lead to solutions.
Yeah, I totally agree. Talk more, if you don't mind, about the race connection for those who maybe don't understand how those things are connected.
Yeah, teen pregnancy, young women from communities of color are more likely to become teen mothers. For example, Black young women are twice as likely to become teen mothers than their white counterparts. So we're seeing in these communities where opportunities have been historically limited, Black and brown youth, Black, Indigenous, and Latinx communities in particular, where there have been real opportunities cut off for these young people. You'll also find that they have higher rates of teen pregnancy in these communities. And so, I often tell people that if you're working to prevent teen pregnancy or doing anything with young parents and you're not talking about race, then you're missing the mark.
Yeah.
And, this is really an opportunity. I think there's a moment in this country right now for us to really begin to talk about it and face some of the things that we don't really, historically we haven't wanted to face and kind of come to terms with. But it is very interconnected with the story of teen pregnancy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think that there are a lot of people that also feel passionate about being pro-life or passionate about orphan care. And really, this is a big part of all of that too, is supporting young moms. Like that's really where that starts.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is that if, this is really about family. And if people are passionate about families, you know, we have an opportunity to really rally around families, these young families that honestly, people tend to just rip the rug right out from under them.
Yeah.
So I think if we care about families and we care about how the little ones do, you know, how are they going to be set up for success, then we have to start really supporting young parents and making sure that they're successful in their education. And that's kind of a missing piece in all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. What can educational institutions do to make a college education more accessible?
There are a lot of things at the higher ed level. You know, for one thing, I think it's really important for higher ed professionals to just recognize that there is a whole population of students out there who are parents who are highly motivated to earn a post-secondary credential, and they're ready. You know, they're ready to go to school. They're ready to be successful. The system is just not set up for them. And so what kind of transformations need to take place within higher ed to really be better equipped to serve these students? We know that when parenting students come into colleges and universities, they actually have higher GPAs than their non-parenting peers, which makes a lot of sense because, you know, as parents, we're all highly motivated to do the best that we can for our kids. And so they're coming in highly motivated. They're assets to any community that they come into, but yet they're 10 times less likely to graduate. And that really speaks to the fact that, again, you know, institutions are not set up to really make sure that they're successful. So some basic things that we'd like to see institutions start doing is just tracking the parenting status of their students. So by and large, institutions have no idea how many students on their campuses are raising children or providing caregiving. And, you know, if you don't measure something, you don't prioritize it. So this is really an invisible population. It's about 1 in 5 undergraduate students across the country. But at any given time, a college or university really has no idea who on their campus is parenting and what their needs are. So that's one basic thing. Another thing that I often talk to schools about is I'll say, you know, what are you doing around your student parent work? And they'll say, oh, we have a childcare center. We've checked that box. And we really want to encourage institutions to think about using a student parent lens across all of their services, financial aid, enrollment and admissions, even facilities, and making sure there are things like diaper changing stations and lactation rooms. So really helping, you know, schools to think more broadly about what could a family-friendly campus really look like. Yeah,
I love that. Well, where can people learn more about Generation Hope and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, they can visit us at generationhope.org. We're also on social media, on Instagram at supportgenhope and on Twitter at supportgenhope. And we'd love to continue the conversation.
Absolutely. And then where can people find your book that just went on sale about a week ago? Is that right?
Yes. It's exciting to have
Congratulations.
Pregnant Girl out into the world. They can find it anywhere books are sold. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your favorite local independent bookstore, anywhere books are sold, you can pick it up right now.
Fantastic. And we will obviously link up to the book and Generation Hope in our show notes as well for people who are looking. Nicole, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Today, BJ and I wanted to talk about another topic that is often discussed in our Facebook community group, which is the division of labor and the difference between the emotional load for women versus men who are in partnerships. BJ, talk to me a little bit about what you see and hear from clients and even from people you know in regards to this inequities.
I'm telling you, this topic has surrounded me.
Yeah.
Constantly in the last few months.
Yeah.
And it's been a topic of conversation in our own marriage.
Yeah.
I've always, you know, I grew up in a time, literally, and in a religious system and an environment in the South where I had absolutely no aspirations to go to college, have a career. I thought not only was the most noble thing I could do was be a mom and a wife, but the only thing God approved of was for me to be a homemaker and a mom, and that's it. So I grew up believing women had responsibilities that were different from men. And it wasn't long after I got married that I realized that really did not fit with who I was. Mm-hmm. And as I came into myself as an adult, I really expected more. And yet my husband was the primary breadwinner. I did end up working. I moved to California. We didn't have much option. You pretty much need a two income family to survive. And, but I still, my life acquiesced to his. I had opportunities to do things vocally as a vocalist, for a career. I didn't even pursue them because my husband was in ministry and his career was a calling on our life. I remember standing up in our church service when we were still in Texas in the church. Our first job in ministry was in the church that we grew up in. And I remember standing up about a year after, sometime in the first year of our time there on church staff, in a testimonial meeting and saying, if you had told me a year ago I'd be one of the youth directors, I didn't even use the word pastor, one of the youth directors of this church. And I don't know what I said next, but at the end of the service, I got called into the pastor's office and reprimanded for calling myself a youth director. I was the director's wife. So this was so indoctrinated into me. But there was a part of me that always rebelled against it on some level. And then there was a part of me that just completely accepted it. And so there was very much a division of labor in a lot of ways. But then at the same time, we kind of broke some of the norms. David is a housekeeper. He loves to clean house. It's therapeutic to him. So he always helped out in that way. He is the housekeeper now. I don't do any of the housekeeping. He does all the dishes and all the floors and all the things. But he started doing his own laundry at a certain time. And then when my kids got old enough, they started doing theirs. And so we did divide labor in some interesting ways that weren't typical. But at this time in our lives, about 11 years ago, my husband had a relapse after 20 something years of sobriety. And he lost his job in that relapse. And though he ended up working again in the field temporarily and then in other things later, now he's got a different career of his own, his ability to earn has been greatly diminished. And now I make exponentially more than he does. And yet I still carry a lot of the labor of running our lives, paying the bills, managing the finances, both for our businesses and for our personal life. He doesn't cook at all. So especially in the pandemic, when I've been forced to cook that more than I've ever cooked, if we ate a meal that wasn't takeout, I had to cook it. There's just a lot of things that he's not capable of. He has intentionally learned things this year so that he could take the burden away from me as much as possible. And that's the conversations we've had to have. But it is everywhere I turn, this topic keeps coming forward because universally, even in homes where both people in the couple have always had high-powered careers, the wife still ends up doing more. Mm-hmm. And then our work culture doesn't support anything differently from that anyway.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it's interesting because in my marriage, we started out thinking we'd be egalitarian. And while I think we both would have stated that as a value, it just didn't bear out. And I think that's what a lot of women are dealing with. Like, the husband will say, yeah, we're equal. I'll do an equal amount, but their radar is off. And I think for some, it's that they weren't raised doing any of that stuff. So it wasn't on their radar. They were watching their own parents live out these same norms. Mm-hmm. And then, some of it is societal and how we've been raised. But I just think that we're in a really weird sandwich generation where couples are trying to be egalitarian. Women have the right to go to work, and many of them do, but men have not been socialized. And I hate to sound like negative or pessimistic here, but I feel like retraining this generation of men feels almost impossible. So we have to do it with our sons. Like, that's how it will be fixed.
Absolutely. I really feel that way about so many things. But the truth of the matter is, the generations where it will be fixed, our sons and our grandchildren, they're eager to do it differently, including the boys and the men. And they're open to it. And so I think on their own, it's going to change. And I think we have an opportunity to really guide them towards that in order for it to be more systemic in the way it changes. I don't think it's possible. I think you look at the things we've experienced politically that have shone a light on men in general, white men in particular, and where we sit in our country around egalitarian everything, with race, with politics, with everything. This is a wash. We're not going to change my generation for sure. And we're not going to have a strong change in your generation. But the ones that come in behind you, my grandchildren and your children, I believe, are going to make great changes in these things. I think the hardest part is what to do with it now. How do couples navigate this and try to change it within their own family systems? Because I don't think that's impossible. And I think it's not going to be easy. I mean, I look at us and we're trying really hard at it, and it's just going to always be a little bit, not just a little bit. We're probably at about 80-20, and I don't have any hope we'll ever get past 70-30 at best.
At the same time, I also want to say it's worth trying. Like,
absolutely.
I don't want anyone to hear us being like, well, there's nothing we can do. Like, you should try.
I think you can.
You should buy some books. You should seek some therapy. Like, I think a lot of this it's not on men's radar, and it needs to be. And so, what documentaries do you need to watch? What books do you need to read together?
What conversations do you need to have?
What flow charts do you need to create, and schedules, and, and marking out division of labor? Because unfortunately, I think for women, it sucks because we do carry the emotional load, which means we're thinking about it. Yeah. But we do have to learn how to speak and delegate.
That's it.
If they are not thinking about those things and they do need us to make a list, yes, that sucks, but we need to make the list. So we're not doing it all ourselves. And
you will be frustrated and you will stumble and bumble all the way through it and struggle, but keep doing the struggle. We had this exact conversation about the list. If you'll just make me a list. Okay. We made a Google Keep. Now he's got it on his phone. If I change it on mine, it's changed on his. That was working. But then he would forget to check the Google Keep list. So I got a magnetic whiteboard for the front of the fridge, and I made a list there that he could use. We're in the moment. He's in the kitchen. He can put it right there. And I would put what needs to come up from our freezer, because with the pandemic, we're buying more food and having more in the freezer, and he's rotating food up, and that's his job. That's one of his responsibilities. So I put over there, these are the things that need to come up from the downstairs freezer.
Totally
Ignore the list. Like, it took us a minute, but now maybe a month later, it's working.
Yeah.
So I have to work on my frustration because it's so overwhelming, and we've been so overwhelmed. And again, we go back to the conversation about how diminished we are in the pandemic at this point, our ability to be patient with one another. But it is worth it, because this is one of those things that in the long run is going to benefit you as a family. And you're going to model this for your kids, and they need to see dad not just doing it, but trying and working his way through the changes of it. And being able to do that together is the greatest thing they will see you do. It isn't impossible. I think it really it's crucial that we make a decision. It's the things like, before summer gets here, decide now that dad is going to start now researching summer camps. Because moms always do that crap. Let dad do, right? So look at the things that you always do that you don't have to do. But start now and say, okay, by June, of course, you got to start registering next week for summer camps. I know that. But look ahead and go, okay, what's happening in 4th of July? What are we doing? You decide. And you decide you decide what it's going to look like, what we're going to do. See what happens. Let dad have free reign to do it. And it's not going to look like you did it. But at least you're not having to do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we let go of our perfectionism around it, our need for it to be a certain way. There's so much of that inhibits it, because I'm the person who's like, it's easier for me to just freaking do it than wait for you to do it right. And I've had to learn to go, just do it. I don't have the energy anymore to fight about what it looks like or whether it's good. It just has to get done, and I'm not doing it.
Yes.
And I'm not making your doctor's appointments for you either.
And that can be difficult for us to, let go of the control too.
Absolutely. That's part of why we do it all.
Yeah, it is.
Because
for sure.
Like you said, this is why the emotional labor is such an important part of this conversation, because we're holding it all in our heads, and the dads aren't doing that. They're waiting for us to tell them. So they're not holding it all in their heads. They're not balancing it out and thinking about it all the time before they even take action on it. We're doing that. And there comes the point where we're like, how do I get that to go over to his brain? I can't. So I'm just going to do it all. And that's the shift that we have to make in order to take it off our plate. It really has to go off our plate. And if we're not willing to let it be however it is, we will keep taking it back every time. And then we can't blame them for that.
Agreed.
So that's where it really can work. And I think that's the piece that plays a huge role in our ability to see change within our families about it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Hey, thank you for joining us.
Continue the self-care conversation with us on Instagram at Selfie Podcast and in the Selfie Podcast community group on Facebook.
You can also visit our website to check out the resources we've talked about in each episode at selfiepodcast.com.
Make sure to subscribe to Selfie on iTunes so you can catch up with us next week. Take care.